In Chapter 11, we will look further into biodiversity. What is biodiversity? Generally, when we speak about biodiversity, we're talking about species diversity. This is the variety of individuals in a population. But we could also be talking about genetic diversity or ecological diversity. Genetic diversity talks about the variety of genes in an individual species group. Ecological diversity refers to the richness and complexity of a biological community. This looks at the abundance and complexity of each niche, trophic level, and ecological process within the ecosystem. Species diversity. 1.6 million species are known to live on our planet, but we estimate that there's 3 to 50 million species on our planet in total. The species that we have yet to identify, we assume are mostly invertebrates and bacteria. This assumption is based on the fact that we know that 76% of the known species are invertebrates. Biodiversity hotspots. These are areas that have endemic species. Those are species that only live in a specific area. Biodiversity hotspots are also areas that have lost 70% of their habitat. These are mainly coastal and island areas. Benefits of biodiversity. One benefit of biodiversity is for food supply. New crops and sources for genetic material for crops to prevent disease and pests are in the works. This is our first benefit of biodiversity. The next benefit of biodiversity is that half of all of modern medicine is derived from wild species, which means without those species we could not have these medicines. Our third benefit of biodiversity is ecological health. Our ecosystems are more stable and resilient when they have a higher biodiversity. This means that when one species is pulled out from an ecosystem, the whole ecosystem doesn't collapse. Finally, another benefit of biodiversity is aesthetic and cultural benefits. Ecotourism is a trade where individuals travel to a specific ecosystem to watch that ecosystem interact. Threats to biodiversity. We can remember the threats to biodiversity with a simple acronym, HIPPO. H, habitat destruction. This is when individuals come in and destroy a habitat, possibly to build or do expansion. I, invasive species. These are individuals who are introduced to a community and not native to that area or ecosystem. Usually invasive species are introduced by humans. Invasive species then compete with or prey on the native species to the area. This competition and predation could relate to the extinction of the species in that area. P, pollution. Pollution causes the destruction of an ecosystem, which can lead to the destruction of biodiversity. The next P is for population, the human population. The human population, as it grows and expands, needs more resources. Sometimes we use resources that an ecosystem needs to survive. Other times we actually take the individuals from an ecosystem and overuse them. This is what the O stands for, overharvesting. Endangered species management. Hunting and fishing laws have been put in place to limit the amount of hunting and fishing in an area to prevent species extinction. Also, we have the Endangered Species Act. This classifies certain species who we see in danger of extinction. Endangered species are those who are in danger of imminent extinction immediately. Threatened species are likely to become endangered, and vulnerable species are species that we find rare or are locally depleted by human activities. Other ways to manage species endangerment is to rebuild populations. We can do this through habitat conservation plans. These are agreements with private landowners to use their land to help benefit a species that may be endangered, threatened, or vulnerable. Another law that we've seen put in place is the Convention on International Trade in Endangered Species. This regulates the trade of living species and products that are listed under endangered species. Finally, another way to manage endangered species is by species survival plans. Breeding programs at zoos and botanical gardens offer an opportunity to repopulate a species. Instead of capturing individuals from the wild, zoos create captive breeding programs where they breed their individuals with individuals from their zoo or other zoos to repopulate a population. Then, later on, we can hopefully reintroduce this wildlife into its natural environment instead of keeping it in the zoo.